Melissa Hull is a mother, best-selling author, international speaker, media host, master coach, and CEO. Her journey, however, began with an unimaginable loss, the accidental drowning of her son, Drew. She reimagined her son's loss as a source of wisdom and transformed his absence into a guiding presence that continues to uplift her. Melissa's story is a profound story of growth, of hope, of joy, of embodiment of practices. And the most miraculous part for me, and I'm curious to hear from you, is whether or not a letter she received that saved her life was divine intervention. I hope you enjoy this incredible, moving episode with Melissa Hull.
We need at our table of awareness the logician, but equally we need the intuitive, we need the mystic.
I almost died. I was allowed to go to the very precipice of death, of life and death, and look over the edge. And I was allowed to behold what was there and allowed to come back. Most people aren't.
When we talk about being aligned with ourself or being aligned with our soul or hearing our higher self, that's really what we're talking about, is being connected to that divine part of ourself, that light-filled part of us that is connected to God energy, that is connected to everybody here and every experience we've ever had.
If more doctors, more professionals can open up to use intuitive gifts in their work, that's really important.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and medium, and here we explore life, death, mediumship, near-death experiences, consciousness, and what it all means.
This letter that I received from Teresa was the first time that I felt witnessed. I felt like my pain was actually something that was a shared experience. I didn't feel so isolated and alone. And so I leaned into her words in a way that I don't know that I ever have before. But she said the most remarkable things to me in this letter. She told me that the temptation to look back and to replay that morning would be great. And that the I guess the idea that it was my fault is something that I would have to address. But she said that that happiness and healing were a choice, and that joy was possible, but that I would have to choose it every day. And that there would be days that it felt like I was making progress and other days where I felt like I would lose ground. But she promised me that if I set my sights on the belief that it was possible to have joy and happiness in my life again, and then dedicated myself to the pursuit of that it would be there waiting for me. And it just felt like, wow, it was like this like, I want that. I want to believe that. I want to believe that hope can pull me through this very dark moment. But her words did save my life, because it was the first time that I felt seen and understood, but also that glimmer of hope, that ray of light just came, beaming through the darkness that I felt I was surrounded by. And so I didn't know how. I didn't have a plan. There was no blueprint that she left. She didn't say start here and then go here. She just said that I would have to pursue it. I would have to find it. And so I made the decision that I would. I have never met her. I've never met her. She signed the letter Teresa. She's not a last name, and it just, that's the envelope. There was no return address. I have no idea who this woman is. I have spoken about Teresa for the last 25 years, and no one has ever come forward. No one has ever said, this is my story. This is me. And so she's just this.
I have the goosebumps when you say this, because it feels like it was like an angel in some way.
Absolutely. I've come to believe that it was. I've come to believe that it was a divine intervention, and that this letter was literally a physical manifestation of a gift from God. Because it radically, changed
No. I mean,
my heart in such a way where there was space enough for me to care about my life and myself to want to try. And I wanted to try. I wanted to live. I didn't want to live with this level of hurt and pain because I didn't know how to carry it. But I did want to live. And it became very clear to me in that moment, that's what I wanted, that I wanted a life, that I wanted my son to have a mother that was healthy and whole again. And so that's where I began. I began working.
I mean, I'm really like breathtaken by that whole part of your story that transpired, because, you know, even the way that you describe this letter sort of laying there, that it like almost stood out to you to pick up. I mean, there's so much in there that feels divine to me and sacred. You know, it's like when people are at their knees and they say like, I just prayed to God, please God please help me. And it feels like that.
It was that moment. It was that moment. I was at this point in my healing journey, I felt very isolated from God. Mm-hmm. I felt very punished by God. And so my initial kind of thoughts about what happened, I thought that this woman was my lifeline. I felt like she was a gift, but it was hard for me to trust God at that particular time. So
right, because how could those two things coexist?
Yeah, exactly. So I started with, I believed in the kindness of others. I believed in the journeys of others. And the more people that I found that had lost a child under some, tragic circumstances, that struggled in their marriage after the loss of their child, I clung to those people's journeys as kind of a roadmap for me to decide how to model my path forward. So I spoke to a lot of people who had lost children. I really searched for a community where I felt that my pain was accepted, because everywhere I went, it was like I felt people kind of like clear a path for me. I walked in a room and I know nobody knew what to say to me or how to engage with me. I was really living in unimaginable hell at the time. And so people didn't know what to say. And so they just tried to avoid saying anything. Mm-hmm. And that was another kind of loss that I felt inside of this whole experience, was that the people that I thought would be there for me, the friends that I thought would be reaching out, they did for about a month. And then after that, it's like life goes on and life went back to normal for them. And life was never going back to normal for me. And while I knew that they cared, and I still know that they cared, I also really struggled with their distance at the time. Mm-hmm. It was hard for me.
It's like compounding loss after compounding loss after compounding loss.
Absolutely. And then when I would be around people and I did struggle emotionally, it felt like my pain and my hurt was a challenge for them to make room for. And so it just always felt like the platitudes would come like, well, you still have Devin. And they would say things that were true. And yes, I'm grateful for them, but it felt at the same time very dismissive and hurtful to the reality that I am living without one of my children. I'm now living without the guarantee that my husband and I will work through this and get through this as a family. Thankfully, over time, it was about a year after Drew passed and Joey had made the decision to leave, that we did reconcile, and we did our best to bring our marriage back together. And we did some healing. There was some progress. We tried to have another child. We were pursuing in vitro fertilization, and we had just a really tough journey. We were pregnant a few times and lost every one of the pregnancies. One of them just shy of the 5th month.
Oh.
And then I was, honestly, my heart was just absolutely exhausted. My body was physically exhausted. And I remember this is when I had that come to Jesus moment, that conversation with God. I'm like, okay, look, this is not working. Here's the deal. Exactly. We got to get on the same page here. Like, if this is going to be the continuation of my life, I'm sorry, but no more of it. Like, I can't do that. I can't do any more loss. I just can't. And God heard my prayer. My husband went and had a medical procedure to reverse a vasectomy, and we waited the appropriate amount of time, but we conceived our daughter Hope naturally. And after 4 years of the pursuit of having another child, we welcomed our baby girl into this world. And Hope restored not only hope to our lives, but she was this breath of fresh air, this beautiful gift, this perfect little girl that came into our world and really healed us. She just brought so much love and joy and hope and optimism and the belief in the future again in such a profound way that we were doing great as a family. It felt like we were really at that turning point, and really I felt like, okay, I can see now how I can take these circumstances and move forward in a very positive and meaningful way because of the restoration I felt in my soul after her birth.
How did you go from this letter that said you have to make this choice every day to the point where you were able to reconcile with Joey? And because there was a lot of hurt and shame, a lot of hurt and maybe some shame in things that you had found out about what had gone on. I mean, you say in the book, your marriage wasn't on stable ground before this happened. So what did that choice, what did that choice look like from the moment you read that letter? How did you put one foot in front of the other foot after you were on the verge of taking your own life?
Taking my own life. I started with 15 minutes where I decided every day for 15 minutes, I was going to look for things to be grateful for. I was going to start with gratitude. Gratitude started with things like, I got up today. I brushed my teeth. I celebrated the simple wins, the little things. And as I could find space for gratitude and thankfulness for being able to do that much, I found that I had that much more room inside of me to stretch and to extend that. But I committed every morning to 15 minutes of positive thinking and to positively see Drew, not to think of him in his, that last time that I saw him at the mortuary, but to think of him as I remembered him at home, full of life, full of joy, climbing the trees. So I would go to places that reminded me of his life and not just the circumstances of his passing. And that's how I began. It was very intentional. It was very structured, because if I didn't structure that, the grief could come in and kind of just take over and rearrange my day. So I had to be very intentional about how my mornings started, what that looked like. And then when I would struggle throughout the day, I would repeat the 15-minute cycle. Sometimes I would preload and bring a picture or a photograph of a happy memory, and I would put it in my wallet and I carried it with me. I also used to take one of Drew's favorite toys with me, his little...
The Power Ranger, the red Power Ranger.
Power Ranger.
Will you share that story? Because I again, I'm always looking at where the spiritual aspects of a story are. And you had so many, even in the face of what felt like there were none.
Yeah, I have always been blessed to have these, I call them happy coincidences or, divine interventions. They've been a common theme throughout my life, but this one was really beautiful. I assumed that Drew took that Power Ranger with him everywhere. It was always in his, it was like about this size, it wasn't large. It was maybe 3 inches tall. So it was a little action figure he would put in his pockets, and he would take literally everywhere with him. He loved this Power Ranger. And I assumed that he had the Power Ranger with him the morning that he left. And it was much later, I found that Power Ranger. And it felt like it was a gift straight from Drew. And that Power Ranger just brightened my spirit. My heart smiled. It broke at the same time, but it smiled greater than it grieved. And I took that Power Ranger, and in my mind, it was a gift from Drew, and it was the encouragement that I needed to live like he did, with just this enthusiasm and this curiosity and this, belief that every day is a good day. Every day is just, ours to make the most of what we will with it. That's how Drew lived. Drew never stopped, living life to the fullest. And I don't know if that's because somewhere in his heart and soul, he knew he had a short period of time here, but that little boy lived. He lived every single day. It frustrated me at times because he didn't listen. He broke every rule. He did crazy, dangerous things. He climbed really high trees. He'd get up on top of roofs.
Yeah, I was imagining, even as you were describing him in the beginning, like what that would have looked like when he was a teenager.
Yeah, I have so many stories. He picked up a rattlesnake one day. He just picked up a snake and showed me, look, Mama, look what I found. And I'm literally losing my mind, freaking out because my child is holding a venomous snake. We live in Arizona, but he had no fear. This child, like nothing about life or what was comprised within the world felt intimidating to him. Mm-hmm. And so I decided that I was going to reacquaint myself with grief in a new and different way. It was going to become something that I was going to be curious about and I was going to learn from rather than avoid, fear, and try to shut down and minimize. So when I leaned into that grief, that pain, those deep fears, like, was it my fault? Am I responsible for this? All of those hard questions, I started to understand that not only was I not responsible for that accident, that I was blessed to have the 4.5 years that I had, because there were many instances that Drew could have been taken from us because he just lived fearlessly. He did things that weren't necessarily, I guess, quote unquote, normal. Mm-hmm. And so I just decided I was going to be fearless. I was going to be fiercely committed to what felt right and true to me, that my healing was not going to be something that others got to comment on. I pursued the channels and the avenues that felt right to my heart and soul. And that's what led me to a drumming circle in Utah, at a spiritual retreat. That's where I was introduced to some of my greatest mentors, Tam Pendleton, Stacy Sadler, Robin Johnson. I learned Reiki from Robin Johnson. I became a Reiki master. I started to understand energy and the way that energy flows in the body and how to balance that.
So I just want to stop you for 1 second, because you were, like I had said earlier, you were doing all like the traditional things.
Oh, absolutely.
And it felt like it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, it was hard because when you're asked, how does this make you feel? Or how are you feeling now? I could access that, but what I needed was, how do I want to feel in the future? How am I going to take this and shift this inside of me, this weight, this feeling, or how am I going to reprogram my thinking into a much more expansive and optimistic view of my future. I couldn't seem to get there in therapy. Not that they weren't trying. I mean, I could only journal it out for so long, and every like I got frustrated at one point.
Yeah, I like that in the book
when one more time, and I'm going to literally throw my journal right at you.
Right.
Like, no more asking me to journal it out. I need to take this and move it. And I remember scribbling in my journal. I said, "This is all I feel inside. This," and then I showed it to my therapist, and that's when he said, "Maybe you should paint." And
right. How to use creativity.
How to use creativity. How to take a new approach at what we had been trying to tackle, for months at this point. And I found so much help in healing, just painting. It began with very nonverbal types of processing. My emotions, I could translate onto a canvas with bold paint strokes and tenebristic kind of, movement throughout the canvas that felt very much like that scribble that I felt my life felt like inside. I started to put it onto a canvas. And as I did that, the emotions that I didn't have words for, at least had a visual representation. And it felt like process. It felt like I was moving something forward, and it was helping me move forward with Drew and with the love that I had for Drew, but also with this new relationship with myself.
Were you an artist before? Did you paint?
No.
Or so this just, you just listened to this call of your heart?
I had always been creative. But as far as I'm not a trained artist, but my artwork spoke to people. And at one point I had accumulated enough canvases, and a friend of mine said, you should have a show. You should do an art show. And she owned a restaurant. She said, just do it at my restaurant. And I did. And I sold out every single painting. Every single painting was sold. And not by friends or people that knew me, but by people that I didn't know, people that were just coming to the restaurant and seeing my work. It was resonating. And so I knew I was on to something. I knew that my ability to channel this internal world that I was struggling to make peaceful and transform it into this space of something optimistic and beautiful. It really did translate on the canvas, and people resonated with it. And so I found that I had this talent. And so I kept painting. But at some point, the painting needed to shift. I had more to say. It's like I started with nonverbal things, the visual representation, which then gave way to me being able to say, this is how I'm feeling. And I had more words at that point. And that's when the therapies started to really kind of mesh, and I started to feel like I was making progress. But my spiritual practices were absolutely intertwined at this point. And I really feel like that blend between traditional and spiritual practices was the sweet spot where I rediscovered my path forward to wholeness and to self-forgiveness and to, honestly, self-love. I don't know that I could have ever come to know myself the way that I do today without this journey. Mm-hmm. I am so grateful for the insight, the wisdom, and the learning and the growth that I've been able to access thus far. I'm sure that there's still more in my future that I will still learn and evolve from. But I am the happiest I've ever been. I'm the most at peace that I've ever been. I'm the most creative and passionate about my life today than ever before. And I see it all as this miraculous gift, because when you think about the immense pain of where my journey started, to be at a place where I wake up every day and I'm really joyful. I'm really, really grateful. Life isn't perfect, but my ability to see possibility inside of difficult circumstances or problematic, situations, is very different. I don't lose myself to them anymore. I am a force that happens to life, and life is not the force that happens to me anymore. So I've flipped that. And now I have much more of an ability to be the woman that I want to be, and have the impact and share my story in a way that I hope will inspire others to embrace their own healing journey.
I love that. I'm a force that happens to life. Life isn't a force that happens to me.
And that was something that one of my mentors said to me. He said, when you can become the force that happens to life, you become an unstoppable force. It's when you let the force of life dictate what you're capable of, that's when limitations come. So I've never stopped believing that I am the force that happens to my life. I am the author of this journey. So I write, and I write with intention. I live with intention. I surround myself with massive amounts of people that I love and appreciate. And I find that's where my joy is rooted. My joy is rooted in the love and the relationships and the memory of the people that I love.
Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the different spiritual practices that you incorporated as part of your healing journey?
I can. Reiki was a big one. It started off with being the recipient of Reiki. I would go for Reiki sessions. And once I started to notice, I feel like I've always been a very energetically aware person, so kind of sensitive to that. I loved the way that I felt after. I loved it so much that I wanted to continue it, and I wanted to understand it. So I wanted to study it. And so I went from being the recipient of Reiki practice to being a practitioner. And I studied for 5 years and am a Reiki master. I also studied with Tam Pendleton, who is the creator of the Healer's Blueprint, which is largely comprised of cellular release and cellular release therapy, which is modeled, I think, a little bit after the Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley. That really worked for me. Getting clear on my subconscious mind and understanding how my central nervous system played a part in how I could access my emotions, or how they could hinder or help. But going back and really reconciling old trauma was helpful to me. It felt like I was finally taking this weight and lightening my load every single time that I would go through these practices. And then I studied auras. I studied aura personalities. I wanted to understand light and what our light looks like, what energy, looked like. And I studied pranic healing in India. I did drumming circles. I tried so many different things. I studied crystals. I went and learned about crystals and essential oils. And I just started to really understand that healing was a multifaceted kind of endeavor. And so I allowed for myself to pursue whatever felt right and true and helpful and healing for myself. Now, sound therapy, love sound baths.
Me too.
If you've never been to the Integratron out in 29 Palms, California, you should go. It's an incredible experience. Sound bowls, every single form of sound therapy, ocean drums. I love ocean drums, and I will use ocean drums just to kind of help me get my energy back into a
coherent
place
state.
Where, yeah. So that's how it happened. It was really this pursuit of how do I take this progress and continue it and elevate it or expand it or deepen it. I just was open to everything.
It's amazing. Thank you all so much for helping me push into the top 10 of spirituality podcasts. I could not be more excited and more grateful. And so much of this is because of you. It's been a while before I've shared all the different ways we can work together. So I wanted to make sure that if you are interested, you know how you can find me and what you can expect. So obviously you can continue to find me here on the podcast for free. If you could rate and review the podcast, I would be so grateful. And make sure you're subscribed either anywhere you get your podcasts or on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Also, I have an online community. All of this will be listed in the show notes. This is an excellent opportunity if you really value the podcast to support the podcast. I do all of the podcasts myself, other than these random dynamic ads that you hear placed in. It is completely self-funded, except for that and the help that I do get from some of you who are part of my circle community, for which I am so grateful. Every little bit helps me so very much. Other ways that we can work together. If you do not have my Essence workbook, you can get that online completely free. Just go to my website and sign up. This is my workbook. You get a meditation and a little bit of my course to tap into your essence. You can also find my Signs and Synchronicities workshop on my website. That is a workshop for you to learn how to better tap into your signs, your synchronicities as well. If you are a therapist and you are interested in my continuing education course on spiritually informed therapy, make sure you are signed up for my waitlist so you know as soon as that course opens again. We will be doing ongoing courses throughout the year, which I am so excited about. And this community of therapists that is coming into the space is such a beautiful, mindful community that if you are a therapist, you are going to want to be a part of. Also, I have a retreat coming up in March that is wonder and awe. It is all about finding your way back to your essence, frankly, this curiosity and this wonder that we all had when we were young that slowly falls away from us. We are going to find our way back there. All of this information is contained on my website. You can find it there at dramyrobbins.com. But I really would love to see you, to work with you, and to connect with you. So please check it out. Where do you, you have been, so your new book, Dear Drew.
Yes. Dear Drew.
Creating a Life Bigger Than Grief is it out yet?
It is. It was
okay.
Released on August 19th.
Okay, because I have a uncorrected reader's copy. So I always get them before they go out. So I didn't know when. So it is out now. It's a beautiful memoir and kind of to do, like step by step, what you can do, what you can incorporate into your grief journey. What is your life? You talked a little bit about, you are at a place where like every day is joyful. What does your family look like today?
My family. So Hope is now in her 4th year of college. She is studying architecture. My son is married. Devin is now married. And I have a beautiful daughter-in-law, Callie. They live,
and by the way, you look like you could be like 30. So I think
well, thank you.
It's just like a testament.
Oh, thank you. I'm getting ready to turn 55.
Wow.
Honestly. Yeah. But I will say that happiness is the best anti-ager out there. If you have a happy, fulfilled, meaningful life, there's a radiance that comes with living in that kind of alignment. There just is. And so I thank you for that. But yes, I am definitely a mom with a son that's married and a beautiful daughter-in-law, and my beautiful little girl is now a mature woman, and they're both living lives that they're happy and fulfilled inside of. My marriage ultimately did not survive. Joey and I have been divorced now for 5 years, but we are absolutely each other's dear friend. We do not hold any animosity for the past. It is nothing but an appreciation for the journey that we've both been on. And I think we have an unbreakable bond in that we went through an unimaginable experience. We handled it differently. There were definitely choices and decisions that I wish didn't happen. But while our marriage didn't survive, our friendship did. And that I'm so grateful for. He's a dear friend of mine, dear friend, which I know is hard for people when they read the book to understand. But I have no space in my heart for hate. I have no space in my heart for resentment or anger. I enjoy living with this level of of peace and tranquility. My internal world is finally aligned with how I want it to be, which is I hear my heart. I can hear myself think. I can see I can dream and see my future in an expansive way. And all of that is the result of the journey that I have been on. It's not in spite of it. It is because of it.
Yeah, that's so incredibly beautiful. Like this whole interview has just, I don't know, it's had such like it feels like what life is about. Like that there's pain and hardship, but also beauty, and those two can walk side by side, and
they do.
And they do. Yeah.
When we make a choice. But it is a journey to understand that. It is a practice in order to create that. And it is a dedication out of self-love to maintain it. It is not accidental.
No,
it is intentional. It's not something that happens by chance. This happens by decision. This happens through intentional action. And that's what the letter was reflective of. She promised me that they would be there, but the choice would be mine. And I would have to choose to pursue that every single day, which is what I did. And not perfectly, but I still, when I stumbled, I regrouped and I kept going. I never, ever, ever I was never even tempted to stop trying, because I was making progress. Maybe it was progress at, a pace that felt slow at times, but it was progress. And it was mine, and nobody could take that from me. And it became this point of a sense of accomplishment, that I was creating this beautiful journey inside of the most unimaginable, most horrifically painful thing I could ever imagine going through. Drew wasn't lost to me anymore. Drew wasn't outside of what my future could hold. He was absolutely right there alongside me, moving forward with me. And that's how I've lived ever since. And that's what's worked for me.
Well, Melissa, I hope that someone is out there listening and this is their, what was her name? Teresa. This is their Teresa letter.
Yeah. That's what the book was. That's absolutely why the book was written. I took 25 years before this was published. So I began the first manuscript. I completed it in 2020. It took 5 years to bring it to the readers today. This is my best work. This is my heart on every single page. This is my hope on every single page, is that everybody who reads this book, that comes in contact with it, sees and feels the hope, sees and feels the love that I have for them in their journey, that they are not alone, that they are seen, I want to hold space for them by sharing my story and what worked for me. What Teresa, in her letter, she didn't give me a roadmap. I knew I wanted to give people some idea of what I did, because that was the hardest part to acquire. So I wanted to give people some semblance of an idea of the things and the practices that worked for me along the different stages of this journey, which is what Dear Drew, Creating a Life Bigger Than Grief, is all about. It's all about, how do we arrive? How do we first commit to the belief that it's possible? And then how do we dedicate our daily choices to align with bringing forth those outcomes that we want, which is to be whole again, which is to be safe and feel like life is safe again, to feel safe enough to love and create relationships, because they do feel risky at some point. But that hope and optimism will always be there for us, and joy and happiness are not outside of our reach. We have not been cut off from those beautiful emotions. We just have to reach for them differently and pursue them.
And you, I think what's so beautiful about it is that you embody, right? This is 25 years out. This isn't 5 months out. This is 25 years of living what you're talking about here. And the proof is in the way that you have embodied everything that you practice. And so for that, and for showing the world that there is hope in the midst of what feels at the time like unimaginable, unsurvivable pain. So Melissa, if people are interested, tell everybody where they can find all the amazing things you do. Your work has been featured, which people will hear when I do the intro initially, everywhere. So where can they find you if they want to reach out, work with you, connect with you?
My website, melissahull.com, is a great resource for people that are looking for ideas on how to heal. I'm also a water safety educator, and there's tons of water safety resources for families. It is my absolute desire to see drowning prevention increase. The topic, talking about water safety, educating families.
And there's been several high-profile drownings recently.
Very recently.
Yeah.
And in my community as well. So I offer all of that with love. It is completely free. These are free resources. I also my book can be found on all major booksellers, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, Walmart. The book is available at any one of those retailers. And social media as well, Melissa Hull.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for your time and for your beautiful story. And we made it. We made it through. We had several glitches that hopefully you won't hear as listeners, but we had a couple of hiccups along the way, but we did it.
We did it. And it was great. And I really thank you for this opportunity to talk about Drew and my journey and to share my book with your viewers.
Thank you. Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.